Switching toy companies, he went from dough to... Oh, here's your look at the new Jakks Pacific, The Simpsons, Homer Simpson. Collect your favorite cartoon characters from the Simpsons TV series, with the first wave of the Simpsons 5-inch scale figures featuring basic articulation. These iconic characters from the Simpsons are sure to please cartoon lovers and collectors alike. While Mr. Simpson is about to hit a chestnut tree, let's take the tape measure and see how tall the brand new Jakks Pacific 5-inch scale Simpsons figures stand. While I am impressed by the line, I have to say the distribution on these figures absolutely stinks. Most of the sites actually are still listing these as pre-orders. The only way I've actually been able to get my hands on any of these is through Facebook selling groups. Hopefully that will be changing shortly. Though the figure does stand exactly as claimed, he's 5 inches in height, or Homer Simpson from the brand new Jakks Pacific line stands about 13 centimeters tall. I don't know if Simpsons is one of those cursed IPs, because it seems as quickly as a company picks up this license, they either lose it or they drop it, because then you never see them do anything else with it. In the furthest corner, in the smallest size, here's Lego's offering of Homer Simpson. Now, Lego is a good example of this, because Lego is really notorious for picking up a license. You get very little of them, whether it be build sets or, in this case, minifigures, and then you just never see them again. Scooby-Doo? I can think of Scooby-Doo. I can think of Ninja Turtles. Simpsons I would probably put in that category as well. Now, what we're getting here with Jakks Pacific, granted, is only the first wave, but these are the fully posable 5-inch scale figures. They're also very much doing the 2.5-inch scale figures, and anybody knowing Simple Division would know that he's half the size. He doesn't have as much posability, but I think one thing that Jakks Pacific seemed to be really doing is with the 2.5-inch figures, they're releasing things like the sets, that Simpsons homes, the dioramas, probably vehicles down the road. I can imagine they're probably going to be doing as much here with the 5-inch scale figures. Now, Super 7, boo, hiss. Yes, Super 7. Just before really getting heavily into the Ultimates line of Simpsons figures. They did dabble the waters, though, with 5-point articulated figures. Now, what they ended up doing, though, was they released 2 waves of Treehouse of Horrors. I've only looked at the first wave here on this channel. I might consider maybe picking up the second wave if I can find them for a decent price. Cloaked Homer, though, having only 5 points of articulation, he only goes to maybe about the nose or so from Jakks Pacific. Playmates is really the one that handled the licensing the best, not only releasing mentioned Treehouse of Horror, but releasing any citizen of Springfield you could possibly think of. I really should have brought in the Homer that got packed with Kang and Kodos. I couldn't actually find that set at the time of shooting record, but I did, though, find Homer Kong. At least it kind of gives you at least an idea of how much bigger, a little more bulkier, and a lot less articulated we got from Playmates, but we got a whole lot more figures of them. Going back, though, to Super 7, obviously, Super 7 did release a line of Ultimates figures. Whatever you may feel of this line, here's what he looks like with Deep Space Homer. I don't have Moo Moo Homer. I don't know if I'm even planning to get Moo Moo Homer. I kind of wanted to really see this line completely till its end. I mean, the Moo Moo Homer never really reached a lot of online sites. I've seen a couple of them listed on Facebook groups, but again, I don't know if I really want to fork over the money for something that essentially is a dead line. Deep Space Homer, though, is one of those good examples that Super 7, while really mishandling the licensing when it came to the choice of characters that they went with, at least the characters, rightfully so, had a lot of posability and they had a lot of accessories. It's just a shame that the line had to end because I feel poor mismanaged ideas on Super 7's part. Homer Simpson does come included with a box of donuts for his accessories. I'm telling you this now because looking at the box, you would just suspect that this is a box of shoes. I mean, the box itself does open, so I mean, right away you'll know exactly its contents. But could they not have put a little label or something on the top that says donuts? Could they not have put something on the side? Because there's really nothing to indicate at all, unless short of going back and looking at the episodes again. Maybe the boxes are completely blank. Luckily, though, you'll know right away that when you pick up this figure for yourself, the box of donuts is open like this inside the tray. I have already taken the liberty of actually adding his one other included accessory. The figure does have a partially eaten donut. The thing that's neat about it, though, is that the donut does fit inside the tray. I mean, wouldn't that have been just an absolute bummer if you opened up the box, or you got the box out like this and you thought, hey, wait a minute. I got a partially eaten donut. I got a space in the donut box that looks like it could fit a donut. You wouldn't be able to fit it in because it was way too small. They didn't do that. They didn't do that. You can actually take the donut, and it does fit nicely inside. It sits, though, a little lower than all the others, but I mean, I'm not going to find fault with the fact that at least a donut does actually fit inside the box. I just think the box itself needed to have some sort of label to indicate what exactly the box actually is. Anyways, the partially eaten donut, if we get a closer look at this, Homer seems to like pink donuts. I can probably make out there's some sprinkles on there. Unfortunately, there's not much in the way of paint to help indicate that the fact that there are sprinkles on the donut. Yes, he has taken a few bites, maybe 2 bites out of this donut. You can actually take the donut box. Well, you can't really do much with the box itself, but at least you can take the donut and you can fit it in between his hands. The hand itself is a soft enough plastic that you don't... I was going to say you don't have to heat this, although you really have to fight sometimes to get the donut into his hands. I mean, you have to really wedge it in there. There we go. And he does successfully hold the donut. Ow, ow, ow. Looks good. I mean, I suppose he probably could have come and clued with something else other than just really the box of donuts. I mean, obviously, giving him the idea of a beer probably would not be suitable considering that they have to market this towards kids as well, but giving him at least an unlabeled, unmarked can would have been a nice included touch as well, because I really would have liked to have like a beer in his hand also. Let's go ahead and remove the donut before I drop it onto the floor and move those accessories all out of the way. Now, Homer Simpson, looking at the figure's head sculpt, I wanted to bring the original one in also as well so you guys can see, like the head sculpts are very much similar to one another. If I was to say, if I was to speak to somebody at Jakks and ask them, are they using the exact same mold? I don't think I would be all that surprised if they said, yeah, we're using literally the small scale figurehead with the larger one as well. I mean, they are identical. It doesn't look like maybe there's a little bit of a difference between the two. One of the big notable differences, though, is that there's a coloring difference between the yellows. It's a much brighter yellow here on the 2.5, and it's a much more kind of darker yellow here on the larger scale. I don't know if I would say maybe the smaller one is a little bit more cartoon accurate when it comes to its color scheme, because I think like the yellow works a little bit better for the smaller one than it does on the bigger one. The thing I like at least about this one is that they've also painted on, now on this one too, they've also sculpted in the little, I don't know what you call it, little scribbles that he has on the back of his hair. If you run your finger across this, you can actually feel that this is sculpted in place. So they haven't just printed it on there. Also, they've sculpted the tiny 2 hairs that he has on top of his forehead, so that's nicely been painted too. It's an all in all a decent looking painted Homer. The only thing I would have problems with this, if I was to say anything, is if you're looking at his sleeves, the tops of his sleeves don't quite match the colors that he has for the front of his chest. I don't know why that the shoulders are a completely different white, but you can see it does certainly stand out. It almost looks like Homer has sweaty armpits. As you can see, though, turn the figure around, there's not really much in the way of paint. This probably looks like they've molded this in plastic. Maybe what they ended up doing was painting this, and maybe that's why that this isn't quite the same white as the rest of his body. You can see also in the back he does have this stamp printing there of his manufactured, I'm guessing the place where they actually manufactured the figure. Luckily, though, it's on the back of his behind and you don't see it on the front of the figure. Now, he's got some decent levels of posability, although I was kind of disappointed the fact he didn't have more going on for his head. Now, when we looked at the smaller Homer Simpson, obviously, he only would have had just a rotation back and forth. You could still have brought his arms out. You could still rotate his arms all the way around. There's no swivel here. There was no swivel in the waist, but you could bring his legs forward like this together. When you moved one leg, you basically would be moving the second leg along with it as well. This Homer at least benefits from having some additional articulation, but really honestly, I wish the figure could have had some ball joint going on for his head. With the head only being able to swivel back and forth, it's fine and good, but I think he could have got a lot more going on if they had managed. Now, you also have to contend with the idea that he's got a collar here as well. I don't know, maybe that's one of the reasons why they chose not to use a ball joint. I just wish the head could have been able to move up and down, or rock back and forth. I mean, literally all he can really do is just do this. Now, his arms, like the smaller scale, can actually come out. I have to say, though, I don't know why these arms are loose so quickly out of the packaging. I mean, they're not loose to the point that they're going to drop, but they are certainly loose when you feel them in your hands. The arms do rotate. The elbow bend, again, does feel a little on the looser side. You can rotate the arm back and forth, so he's got basically like a hinge right here. You can bend the elbow, and you can rotate. You can rotate it here as well. Hands rotate also, too. There's no, obviously, swappable hands or anything like that. Hands do also hinge back and forth, so he has a little bit more than the smaller scale. He does have a waist swivel. It was a little tighter on the figure before. Legs split out. You can take the legs and move them independently, which is one good thing. So like the smaller one, you'd have to, if you brought obviously one leg forward, you would bring the second leg together as well. This one, you can actually move them independently. So they hinge out, move them forward and back. He has a bend at the knee. There's no articulation here in the leg, but you can at least move the feet back and forth. Up and down hinge, you got some rocking there as well. The figure does have also pegals on the bottoms of his feet. So like he is certainly a step up from the smaller scale, and I'm not just saying it from the standpoint of size. I mean, obviously, to look at the two, there are a lot of very similar traits between the two figures. Where this figure does benefit is the fact he does have hinges in his elbows, because obviously the smaller scale figure didn't have that. He has hinges in his knees. I don't know if I would say that he is a better looking Homer. I almost still feel like the yellow Let me just move this guy over a little bit. I almost feel like the yellow on the 2.5 Homer looks a little brighter. Maybe he's a little too dark of a yellow. He certainly is a lot darker here in the shoulder sleeves. I don't know why those had to be a different color from the rest of his chest. I do like that he comes included with the donuts, but you know, again, to go back and look at the episode, maybe all the boxes have unnamed like maybe they just come from some generic. It just says donuts on the front of the store and there's nothing printed on the actual box. I just wish they could have printed something on the box. The included idea of having donuts is a nice touch. The idea that you can actually have a separate donut that can still store inside the box is also a nice touch. I just kind of wish that Homer could have come also included with a beer. I know you can't say necessarily Duff beer on it. Maybe that's probably one of the things that they have to kind of avoid on their ends. But at the very least, if they had released a can, some generic can that they could have put in his hand would have been also a nice touch. I like, though, this Homer. We're also going to be looking at a whole bunch of them coming up this week. Actually, I managed to pick up Otto, the Bart Simpson, and also Bartman. So we're going to be looking at those in upcoming reviews. So you guys kind of get a good experience, a good chance to see these. The only thing I would also say, too, is like the distribution right now in these figures are terrible. Finding these in stores, I mean, I can't speak for in the U.S. I mean, you guys probably have had better luck to find these in American stores. Here in Canada, I've checked around at Toys R Us, I've checked at Walmart. Nobody seems to be stocking these. The only place, and I don't know where even these sellers seem to be getting these from, seems to be the Facebook groups. Luckily, I was able to get the set, and I think I probably paid, I want to say, a little over $100. Maybe it was $120 to get the set of 4 figures. I guess that's not a bad price. At the end of the day, they're really nice looking Homers, really nice Simpsons figures. And speaking from the standpoint of looking at Homer, I think I'm glad also to see that this is the first wave of figures from Jakks Pacific, and we're also getting like a Bart Simpson right away, and we're also getting ourselves a Homer. Yes, we are getting an Otto. Yes, we are getting also a Willie. But those are the way that's always really the way I feel like Super 7 should have handled licensing right from day one. Let's just move smaller Homer over here. Where's my Deep Space Homer? Let's bring back in Deep Space Homer. You know, again, like Deep Space Homer was a good example of what Super 7 was capable of doing. What they released was good figures. They just chose the wrong type of characters. Homer wasn't so much the issue. I think that the issue really boiled down to the fact that they just needed to release civilian-dressed Simpsons. And they didn't do that. Jakks is already out the gate doing this for the first wave, and I'm so glad that they're doing that, because like collectors all kind of agree now, looking back on the line of what Super 7 failed with when it comes to their Simpsons, right out the gate, if you're going to be releasing a Simpsons line, you need to release like just a regular dressed Homer as part of the first wave, or at the very least, a Bart for that first wave. It shouldn't be ever something that we would have had to wait for a wave down the road. Like what we're doing so far with Jakks Pacific, I like what we're getting so far with Jakks Pacific. Again, whether you like the idea of collecting your Simpsons in the smaller 2.5 or you like the more articulated 5-inch scale figures, a lot of good stuff so far out the gate from Jakks Pacific. This whole pink box of donuts thing was bothering me, so I just looked online. The best reference I could find was from the game Simpsons Tapped Out, in which they show a generic pink box of donuts with donuts inside that had pink frosting and sprinkles on them. So they probably best resemble the ones that we get here from Jakks Pacific. So it is right, although I do wish that at the very least they could have put some reference to Lard Lad maybe on the top of the box. Nice little touch to have a removable donut that already has 2 bites out of it. Although if you turn the donut inside towards his palm, it looks like Homer hasn't taken any bites out of it yet. Luckily, though, he does hold it in both of his hands. It's really strange, though, that getting this guy out of the packaging with what very little time I've actually had just to play around with the figure, he's already loose in the shoulders and he's loose in the elbows. I don't know if it's just the type of joints that they're using, but I hope that this isn't something that's going to cause problems with this figure line moving forward, because I hate to think that the figures are already going to have really overly loose joints. Head sculpt standpoint, I mean, it does look a little bit different the more that I'm looking at it. The bottom part of his jaw does look like it kind of tucks a little bit more in than the regular 2.5 Homer that we've already looked at. So there might have been a little bit of a difference of sculpt between the two figures. I do think I still like the yellow a little bit more on the smaller scale Simpson rather than the 5-inch. Of course, as mentioned, we are going to be looking at the Bartman, Bart, and Otto, all in the upcoming reviews. You can let me know down below in the comments section what other accessories, yes, would you like to see Homer Simpson get packed with? I mentioned a generic can. I mean, maybe even like a toolbox. I mean, how far do we go with accessories? Carbon-based rod. I don't think he needs to have all of those. At the very least, he comes included with the donut box, and it seems like each one of the Simpsons characters have at the very least 1 or 2 accessories. They're not packed with nothing. If you guys have also had any success to find these at your local stores, let me know down below in the comment section what stores. Mostly I've heard Targets seem to be the go-to. Unfortunately, Targets don't seem to be a go-to here in Canada because we haven't had Targets in our places probably even like last 10 years. We had Targets at one point, didn't do all that well, and then the company just yanked all the stores out. So if they are, in fact, more located at Target stores, that might be one of the reasons why I'm only seeming to have any success finding these on the Facebook groups. If you guys did, in the meantime, enjoy this video, hey, hi, how about that? We want to hit it with a like? I hope so. You guys want to stick around for more? Make sure you hit the subscribe, make sure you turn on the bell, and of course make sure you're coming back, because the reviews of the other 3 figures, I haven't yet picked up Willie. I hope to be picking up Willie soon, but we will be, of course, looking, as already mentioned, at Otto and 2 different versions of Bart Simpson. Those videos will be coming your way during the rest of this week. As always, guys, thanks for watching. See you guys next time.